Welcome back. Hope you're all doing good. This is not going to be a how-to video. This is just going to be a, a video showing you that anybody can do this. An oil change is something easy you can do. Do it in your driveway with just a few very simple tools, and you'll save yourself so much time and so much money. You can take the day off. So you just need a couple of simple things. You can see the trough I have there. I bought that at Lowe's. It's like $10. I have a couple of them, but I use full synthetic oil, and I use name brand filters. If you get on the internet and you're looking for filters, you see lots of cheap filters, but not all filters are created equally. So be careful. So most of the time, I enjoy doing my own work on my truck. It's pretty satisfying, saves lots of time and money. But it's been about 3 months ago now. I was in Houston and hadn't changed my oil in about 15,000 miles, and that's when it starts bugging me. Even though the oil is still very good, but it always stays on my mind. So I passed this place called Lube Zone, and it's a truck, oil change place. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to treat myself just this one time because I always change my oil myself, do my own mechanic work. I said, I'm gonna go in here. There were 5 bays, and I'm gonna get my oil changed real quick and just pay for it this one time. So I did a U-turn. I came back, and when I pulled up, man, they pulled me right into the bay, and I thought that's awesome. And the guy comes up there with his clipboard, and he's asking me everything I want. And there's another guy on the bottom. He's already about to start. And I said, well, wait a minute. Let me go in here and see how much this is. Went inside, and the guy starts adding stuff up, and he goes, that's going to be about $850. And I just about had a heart attack. I said, what exactly are you charging me for? $850? And he said, oh, it's because of the kind of oil you want. And I said, I can go to Walmart and buy oil for my truck for less than $250. So are you charging me double price for the oil and the filters? I don't understand. And anyway, I said, well, you know what? Tell them to stop whatever they're doing right now because I'm not paying $850 for an oil change. And so he said, well, he went outside, he came back, he said, well, they already started the lube. I said, okay, how much is the lube? He said, $38. I said, okay, we'll do the lube and I'm out of here. So he goes, what's the name of your company? And he goes, wait a minute, are you already in our system? And I said, no, I've never been here before. He got this look of disgust on his face, like it was going to be just a whole day's work putting my information in the system. And he took my ticket and ripped it up, and he goes, it's just too much work. And I was sitting there thinking, if that's too much work for you to just type my name and phone number in your system, what are they doing outside? But anyway, as I was sitting there waiting for him to get the lube job done, there was a guy in there and started talking to him, and he had 10 trucks, and he had a little yard that was not far away from there. And he said every month he brings, when his drivers get out of the truck and they go home for the day, he'll drive the truck down there and get it serviced. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're paying double the price. If he's getting synthetic, he probably wasn't. He was probably getting regular oil, but he's paying $850 a piece for 10 trucks. And I'm thinking, man, you can hire a full-time mechanic to come and work on your trucks for a couple of weeks. But yeah, it's not worth it. In most places, you'll be lucky to get in there in 1 hour and get out within 2 hours. You pull into a Petro, you're probably going to be there half the day. But the process is real easy. You just need some kind of little breaker bar or socket wrench. And I usually start the truck up and let it run for about 20 minutes to get that oil nice and hot so it flows easier. If there are any deposits in that engine, that oil flowing for getting hot and flowing for about 20 minutes, and it'll start circulating in the oil, and it'll drain out when the oil's draining out. If you just drain out cold oil, any kind of deposits or anything are going to remain on the engine itself. So this is on this PACCAR, older PACCAR, it's a little bit different. I've got two oil filter housings. One that I'm loosening right there is the regular oil filter, and there's one on the left, and it's called a centrifugal filter, which I think is a great idea, but most engines don't have it. And it's a filter that spins at high speed, and it captures any heavy material and holds it. But a lot of people, they just eliminate the centrifugal filter altogether. I think it's a good idea, so I keep it. But yeah, this is the simple process. You drain the oil, you take the oil filters out, you replace them. This part right here takes 20 minutes to drain all that oil. I usually let it drain for at least 25-30 minutes on the bottom. But changing these filters takes about 5 or 10 minutes at the most. And usually with every oil change, I go ahead and change the fuel filters also, and I'll get to that in a second. But this process is easy. Take the filters out, put the new filters in, and you see that white gasket around there. You can replace that every single time, or replace it every other time. Reusing it one time, it's not going to hurt anything. But what you definitely want to do with any gasket like that is to when you're putting the new gasket on there, you want to put some oil on that thing, and you want to stretch it out a little bit, and because that oil will help that gasket seat. And then next time when you're pulling that housing off there, it will come off a whole lot easier. Now, when you're tightening these things back down, there is a recommended torque setting, but I just tighten it to where I know that that gasket is snug down and there's nothing going to bypass the gasket. It's probably only about maybe 20 or 30 foot-pounds, I don't know, but you definitely don't want to over tighten it and smash that gasket, because when you do that, it'll let an opening in there and oil will pour out. So one important thing that I always do when I'm finishing these things up is I clean those housings very well. I go all the way around it, get any oil that's dripped, and all the dirt and everything off of there, because it's very important when you start that engine up and you're looking for oil leaks, or you might have put that gasket on there wrong or something. If it's dirty and it's got oil dripping on it, you'll never know. So if you get it good and clean, you can always spot those oil leaks really quick. So here's how I need to set up when I'm filling my oil. My oil fill is back in the back under hoses and lines, and you cannot get any type of funnel in there that works properly. Now you can buy a little transfer pump and just pump the oil into that housing. But what I do is I get two small funnels and I tape them into place, because you definitely don't want those things moving while you're holding a 5 gallon bucket of oil or a 2.5 gallon bucket of oil. You want them to stay there and not move at all. All right, the whole process so far has taken me less than 30 minutes, and I'm going to put the plug back in the pan and get my oil ready and pour the oil back in, and then I'll do the fuel filters last. Well, sometimes an oil change takes a little bit longer than it's supposed to because of distractions. When you smell the fried eggs and grits and sausage, you got to come get some, don't you, buddy? Huh? Is that what you smell? Yep. I got about 20 minutes more to go on that oil change, but needed some fuel. That's it. Turn around. No, that's lay down. Turn around. Turn around. Lay down. Lay down. All the way down. That's it. Oh, there. I didn't say speak. Sit. Speak. Good boy. So I've got my truck running, and I've had it running for about 30 minutes now, because I've got my oil in there and I've got the heat turned on high. And that'll, when I start to fill this oil up, it'll make it go a lot faster. Well, that sucks. All right, so as I said a little bit earlier, I've got my truck run, pickup truck, and I've got my oil in it, and I've got it heating up. I've got to get it super hot in that truck, because this part right here will take a long time if your oil is cold, and it's even longer. I usually buy 5 gallon buckets of this. So if you're having to hold that thing up there for 20 minutes pouring cold oil down that funnel, you can imagine it gets to be a pain in the butt. So I get the oil good and hot, and I make sure the funnels are not going to move in any way. And once everything is how it's supposed to be, then it goes fast. Now this thing is full of diesel, so you have to be careful. It's going to leak. There's no way around that. But when you pull it off, it's going to be heavy. And what I do is I always, since I'm draining my other fuel filter right there, I have a big tray. So I'll just lean this over and dump this in the same big tray. Diesel's not going to hurt anything on this truck, so it's okay to spill it, but it'll just smell bad for a bit. All right, got it. Now let's move this down here. All right, done. Okay, for me, this is the hardest part. This fuel filter. Well, I always grease these gaskets. That's a must. If you don't put grease on these gaskets, when you tighten them up, that rubber is just gonna glue to the other side after it heats up a little bit, and you're gonna have a tough time getting it off. This helps it mate up, and when you start to take it off, it'll come off a lot easier. But this is the toughest part to me. You got these threads in here, and there's a couple ways to do this. Most people will probably want to fill this up with diesel. Some of these fuel filters are twice this size. This is a small one. So when you buy the bigger ones, they'll come with a cap in this spot right here. So when you take your old filter off, you just pour the diesel and it goes in these outside holes where it's supposed to go, and not where the filtered fuel already is. But on this one, it's so small, it doesn't make a big difference anyway. So I put it on there dry, and it'll, when you first start it up, it'll run a little rough for a little bit, but it'll straighten itself out. But getting these things threaded on here is the hardest part for me. And obviously I'm not gonna be able to do this with one hand, but you have to line those threads up perfectly to get this thing started on there, and it usually takes me a few minutes to get it. All right, so I carry two different filter wrenches. I've got this big one right here. That one I really needed for my old truck, and it's easier to open up that particular housing right there where there's a filter and there, a fuel filter. And so you definitely need that one on the truck. But I also keep this small one because now this truck has a smaller fuel filter, and sometimes this one is a little bit too much. You'll bend it or break it, that fuel filter, when you're punch a hole in it when you're trying to open it. And that's dangerous because you may get a bad filter and you might have to put that old one back on there. So you don't want to mess it up or throw it away before you're done. And another tip is, I always, when I'm done putting these housings or filters back on, I clean them up real good, all the way around and below it, so that if you do have an issue, if you have a leak somewhere, when you start it up and you come over here and look, it's a whole lot easier to tell if you have a leak, if you didn't seal something right, because it's you know from the beginning it was clean. So if you see something dripping, you'll know right away where that leak is coming from. Okay, couple things. So on diesel trucks, you can usually find, since this fuel filter was empty and that fuel filter was empty, I didn't fill them back up. What I do is I start the truck up, and it's going to run very rough, and it's probably going to only run for a minute. And it's pumping fuel while it's doing that and getting the lines primed up to a certain point. And then what you'll do is you'll find a prime. This is the one on my truck. Just look around the fuel lines and you'll see maybe a red cap. I don't know, maybe they're different colors. But you unscrew this and you pull it out, and it's a pump, and it primes the fuel line. And let me show you if it'll show me. You can see I'm pumping that thing back and forth, and it's slowly filling that housing up with fuel, and it's getting all of the air out of that line. sooner or later. So when that gets pretty much close to full, it's probably going to take pumping this thing, there we go, 50 times to pump this thing to get it all the way filled up and primed. But it's as easy as that. Alright, so after you do this a few times and you learn how to do it, you can start investing in some tools that make your life a lot easier. This lube gun is pneumatic, and it really makes life easier. You don't have to lay down on your back and sit there and pump a regular gun, but you just go throughout the truck and find these Zerk fittings, clean them off so you're not pushing dirt. I can't see because of the glare. So you're not pushing dirt into them when you lube them. And just look all around. They're everywhere. And just fill them up till you start hearing it pop and you start hearing grease coming out. And that's as easy as that. Okay, so that entire operation took me just over 1 hour. And that's with me running around trying to find tools that somehow magically get put in different spots where I put them. But it's really just a few simple tools you'll need. Now, the oil cost me $250. That's full synthetic oil, the good stuff. I usually get T6, which I consider the best oil out there. But this oil I got today was Dello, which is a very good brand. But it's full synthetic. All the filters for my truck has one filter that most trucks do not, and it's a centrifugal oil filter, but it's pretty cheap. So if you order those filters online, I can get all those filters for around $120, and those are name brand PACCAR parts. If you go to one of the Kenworth dealerships or the Performance Trucks or a Petro or something like that, all those filters are going to cost you close to $250. And I did replace my air filter this time, but in my opinion, you don't have to do that every time. I've used that one for about 6 months now, and I just pull it out, and there's several different ways you can clean it, but I use an air hose and just blow all the dust out of there. But at some point, you do need to buy a new one. But so for my oil and my filters, I paid $150, $250. So I paid less than $400 for the best oil I can get and the best filters I can get. And so, if you're thinking about, I've heard people say, well, I don't have the time to do it. I have to stop and let somebody else do it. I don't want to mess with it. And if you think about it, you're losing money on that deal, because all of us know you go to a Petro, you're going to be sitting there waiting in line for people, and if you go to one of these lube centers like I went to, you're going to pay a double price of what you should be paying, and you're still going to be there a couple of hours. I did this in my driveway in 1 hour, and that's with lubing every Zerk fitting on that chassis, checking my tire pressure, and I know it's done right. So it really, 1 hour sitting in my driveway doing that, and I saved over $400 that I would have had to pay somebody else to do it, and not knowing whether that technician just learned yesterday how to do an oil change, or even if they're changing the oil. You just don't know what some of these people get up to. So it's very easy to do, and it will definitely make you money.